I believe people sharing their stories is actually an integral part of studying abroad, because by hearing people's stories, you get to understand the mistakes, you get to understand the intricacies, and you use that story to actually prepare your application. So Edem has a peculiar story. This video will be in two parts. And so this is actually the part one. In part one, Edem is going to share with us her journey from Ghana to Canada. And in part two, so most of the time when people actually get their visa rejected, the advice you actually get is apply again. But Edem decided not to go to the popular public opinion. She decided to take IRCC to court to defend her case. So she's now in Canada. So you and I know that she actually won the case. So in part two, she's going to share with us her journey, how she did it, and the lessons she learned. And from this, you can decide that once you also get rejected, would you want to go to the popular route of requesting, trying the process all over again, or you plead your case in the High Court? Hello and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, I'm Aboagye and I create content on studying abroad. So in today's video, I have with me Edem Robbie. So Edem, one, and thanks for agreeing to do this. I know we've been trying to do this from last year, but I'm happy that finally we have the opportunity to do this. So can you introduce yourself and just tell us who you are, then we could start this conversation.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Barbara, for the opportunity to share my story and hopefully inspire other people to take action if they can, even though it's expensive. But if they can, I hope that they're able to do it. So my name is Edem, as Barbara said. I'm from Ghana. Before I came to Canada to do grad school, I was working as a freelance filmmaker, multimedia journalist, photographer. So taking photos, filming, making films and all of that. My background is in broadcast journalism. That's what I did in my undergrad. And then I sort of taught myself how to use the camera. And then sometime later in my career, when I was working in a radio station, I got mentorship. I got some, trainings here and there to perfect my filming skills. So that's who I am. That's my background. Yeah.
Okay.
So
it's nice to actually get somebody out of the not so common field like journalism going to grad school. Where are you studying now, and why Canada, and how did you start the process?
So I am studying at Queen's. I'm doing my master's. And I also just got admitted into the PhD program. So I'm going to start using your hashtag becoming, I see that you do the becoming doctor. Yeah. So I'm probably going to also become becoming Dr. Aboagye or something. Congrats. Thank you. So I'm doing my master's in screen cultures and curatorial studies, film and media, essentially. And why Canada? Honestly, so my partner at the time was a student at Queen's University, here in Canada. And honestly, for the longest time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back to school because I was really enjoying the work that I was doing, telling the stories, But then at some point when I met this person, and the way they spoke, their depth of, or the understanding of issues and all of that, they really encouraged me, to go back to school. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And so we started looking, and because they were already at Queen's, that's where we sort of started from. So we looked at Queen's, we looked at McGill, we looked at McMaster, and I got into all three schools with varying degrees of funding and scholarship. Two of them were full scholarships, and then the other was like sort of half. but then also there was the understanding that once I start there were going to be research assistantships that I could be doing and all of that. But I'll be honest that I felt drawn to Queens because of the way, when I was looking, before I sent in my application, I sent emails out to profs whose work I had read about and thought that their interests aligned with mine. And
so before you continue, it's actually a research master's you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reception I got from the prof at Queens, it was very warm and very, oh yeah, I want to work with you. I want you to be here. Like, I want to work with you. And so I was like, okay. And that's what made me settle on Queens. And I don't regret it. Because I do feel that I'm getting the support that I need here. I feel grounded and everything else, you know. So yeah, it's funny. I didn't think I was gonna, if I was gonna pursue my education. It's very interesting for me how, so we just realized that 10 years ago I met some Canadians in Ghana, and some of whom trained me as a journalist and all of that.
That's nice. Yeah.
And then 10 years after, we're meeting on the, in person on the other side, so it's, my journey has really been, I don't know if I should say coincidence, but yeah, that's just it.
Okay, that's great. So like, take us through, like, in Ghana, like, what did you study? What did you graduate with? Is your desire not to go to do a master's? Was it based on, like, how do I even put it? It's not common for people in your field to actually go do a master's. Is that the reason why you also didn't feel the need to? And now, how do you think this master's is actually influencing your career path? I don't know if my question is clear.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So where do I start from? So I studied actually it was a degree in communications, a bachelor's in communications. And my specialization was journalism, broadcast journalism. So from the African University College of Communications, which is located in Adabraka. So like, it's communications.
That's AUCC?
AUCC, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's communications, but there's visual communications, there's development communications, there's broadcast journalism, and there's strategic communications. So it's, yeah. And then, so I did broadcast journalism, and I graduated with a first class degree with a GPA of 3.7. 3.73. But when I was in school, I was doing when I was in school, even though I was studying broadcast journalism, I was teaching myself how to use the camera. And so when I was in school, my first year I did get a training from CTFM where they had this program called Hold My Hand documentary series, where they were training students who wanted to be journalists and and people to become citizen journalists. So after that, that's when I produced my first ever radio documentary on teenage pregnancy.
Before you continue, can I just chip in something before I forget? I like the fact that in as much as you were schooling, you also took some time to actually improve yourselves. And that's what most of us do lack. It's like, for us, when it's school. So I think it's very important you mentioned it. So like, for anybody who is listening, also look at things outside of the classroom, because like, this is what actually makes you stand out from other people, out of the classroom.
That's very true. That's very true. I'm not going to kid you. I was engaged in a lot of student activities, and for me, that's how I learned on the job as somebody who was new to the field. So I was volunteering with the campus radio station. If there were events on campus, like, I would volunteer and take pictures and all of that. So like, it also allows you to it's not just the skill, but it also allows you to network.
Yeah,
You go into spaces where you wouldn't ordinarily be allowed into, but because of, your volunteering and all of that, you get to meet people and all of that. So I think it's very important, and that's also how come I met. I think I got it even into the CTFM Journalists for Human Rights program, because I think they were looking for students who were already proactive and all of that,
okay.
So it all comes together at some point. Wow, I think I've lost my, what were the
I'm
other
sorry.
questions so I could,
So
yeah.
so like the first question, like your background, what you graduated. So the next question is like your fear or your undesire of pursuing a master's. Is it so even before, like on social media, you brand yourself as a photographer and a videographer, but you're actually a journalist.
Yeah, I like to say, well, no, I learned the term that's, multimedia, so I call
Okay.
myself a multimedia journalist now.
Okay, that's good. Okay, yeah.
But at some point, I just really loved to visually tell stories. It's
Okay.
like to let people see the stories. And like for radio, give a, you can make, you can get people to have a mental picture of
Okay.
the story and maybe the environment with sounds, and all of that.
Okay.
But I just really enjoyed, using the camera and telling the stories using the camera. So that's what I sort of gravitated more towards. At some point, I was an editor. So when I got a job at CTTV at the time when CTTV started, even though I
Okay.
was doing camera, I was um, hired as as an editor. But because I had the
Okay.
skills, I would sometimes go out and film and all of that. Um, I don't know.
Oh,
I think my desire to not go back to school. I think a part of it was not feeling adequate, or
okay.
that masters. I thought masters was for. I don't know. I just had this perception about the academia, being
Okay.
at academia and all of that. But I think when I met this person, it all got demystified, for
Okay.
me. And so it sort of also piqued my interest,
Okay.
Um, and so it's like, okay, sure. And there were also issues of um, funds, and
Okay.
money. I was sort of I would say primarily making money, not for take care of myself, but also for my um, my
Family.
family and all of that.
Okay.
So the thought of going back to school, having to pay, it's just your financial burden increases and all of that. So I was considering all of that. So it was a lot of factors at play at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thanks. So now let's look into the admission process too. Since you're now in Queens, let's look at the admission process. What did they require? What was their deadlines? How did you feel when you got admitted? And also, like, even though we're not talking about the issue of the visa, but we know that you didn't get it. So how did you defer? So let's look at the admission process. And once you got admitted, what's next?
Um, so at Queens, I think every department requires different things.
Okay.
But for my department, because that's what I applied to, um, I think there's a sample writing, of course.
Okay.
Um, if you're applying to the PhD, you have to add your CV. But if you're
Okay.
not, and at the time I was applying to the master's, so
Okay.
sample
When you say
writing.
sample writing, what is sample writing?
Um, a- anything that is, academic that you have somewhat academic that you have written before. I think
Okay.
the request for that to see um, if you're able to hold an argument academically,
Okay. And what did you submit for yours?
I submitted my undergrad,
Okay.
my the my undergrad thesis, what I wrote.
Okay.
So I think it's just 10, it was 10 pages double spaced. And so I sort of had to rearrange things to fit that.
Okay.
So that's what I did for my undergrad, for my master's. I think also a statement of purpose.
Okay.
A cover and a cover letter.
Okay.
So those were the documents off the top of my head that I remember that I submitted.
Your
But if anyone
transcripts?
else is interested, they can go
Yeah.
to that. Just type into Google Queen's University Film and Media Studies. I think it will take you to the website where you can browse the website to see the documents that you would submit. The deadline was January 31.
Okay.
So I had so once I knew that I wanted to apply to the program, I had started. I think it took me a whole year to prepare. Oh, and recommendation letters. And recommendation letters. Yeah, from ideally 2 people, the professors who have taught you. So I think it took me a year to prepare. The sample writing, the statement of purpose, cover letter. I wasn't I hadn't done it before, so it was a lot for me. And also at the time I was working, I had a full-time job, so all of that was at play, which is probably why it took me that long. Yeah, and then I got my my admission letter. So
yeah, but before that, how difficult was it to get your recommendation letter? How easy or difficult was it for you?
It wasn't, honestly, it wasn't difficult.
Okay.
Once I reached out to them, I said, this is what I'm doing. They were very happy to. Again, it goes back to participating in extracurricular activities, right? Because there are so many students that these profs are teaching. But what's going to make you sort of stand out? What's like, you have to make it easy for people to do things for you.
Exactly.
So it was once I think they wrote my letters for all 3 schools, and every time, no issues. They just were happy to write it for me. So yeah, there's that. So I got my admission letters from my first 2 admission letters from McGill and McMaster first.
Okay.
And I was waiting on Queens. So I reached out. And I said, oh, I've received my admission letters from I've received admission offers from McGill and McMaster. But I sort of really want to come to Queens. So what's happening? And so I reached out to the prof whom I had talked to and really wanted to work with me, and they said, oh, we'll reach out to the they said we're going to, like, I should expect it or something like that. So I think within a week or less or something like that, I received my letter from Queens, and I was so happy. I was so excited. Yeah, I may have gone out to, I may have taken myself out or something,
That's sweet, okay.
But I was just so, and also I was sort of dealing with inferiority complex. I didn't think I was good enough. But to get offered admissions to all 3 schools that I applied to, it really gave me some sort of boost.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, it did give me some sort of boost. My confidence was, really went over the roof. So that's what happened. And then I sort of started the process, which is different, the visa process and all of that. So yeah.
I like the fact that you mentioned the inferiority complex, because this is actually even somebody who graduated the first class, and as we are growing up, we are taught that, oh, once you get a first class, you're going to get into grad school. And I just want to reiterate the fact that nobody likes rejection. We all have this fear, no matter like the facade we put on that, oh, I'm good enough and all this. We have this fear, but the only way you can succeed is if you give yourself a trying chance. If Edem like never applied, she would have never known she was good enough. So don't let your grades or like your past influence these decisions. If this is something you want, I encourage you to keep on trying. Like the rejections will come, but keep on trying, and you're going to hear good news very soon. I have one question, but I don't know. I've forgotten the question. Yeah, I remember now. So let's talk about your admission package and the scholarship package. Are you open to share it? Like how much you got, and also if it was covering your fees, like what did it entail for you?
Yeah, so the quiz, the I think at the time it's now been increased, but
Okay.
at the time the funding for MA student was 16,000.
Okay.
Um, and um, and the fees was a little over 14,000.
Okay.
But
Per
it
year, per
include
session?
per year,
Okay.
per year, and the masters is 1 year, so that's how much I am
Okay,
to
that's
pay
cool.
for
Okay.
the all of my yeah, and there are internal awards,
Okay.
um, and teaching assistantship, research
Okay.
assistantship that are offered, and even for the PhD, there's teaching fellowship where you are allowed to, like, you can apply to teach your own course,
Okay.
whereas at the master's level, you're a teaching assistant, or
Okay.
research assistant or things like that. Yeah.
And
So,
were these things, are they like constant, or you have to go into the school and apply for this assistantship? Or once you get the funding, like you're also awarded an assistantship that comes with an extra fund, or you go into the school and you apply for this assistantship? How do these assistantship work?
so when you're applying on the
Okay.
portal,
Yeah.
application portal, they will ask
Yeah.
you, one of the questions they will ask you is, are you open to like be a teaching assistant,
Okay.
so it's one of the questions that you answer. And I think there
Okay.
are also funding from the state. I think if you're a permanent resident or
That's
something of
okay.
that sort, you're allowed to apply for Ontario government's
Next scholarship.
scholarships and all of that. Yeah, so all of that will either supplement your funding from this, goes to supplement the funding from your school. And if you receive more than a certain amount, like there's some percentage that is probably deducted from your um, original funding that the school is giving you,
When you,
you know.
okay.
Yeah. So there's that, but that didn't happen to me. So I got
Okay.
my and there are also, once you get here also, there are also internal, the
Yeah.
bursaries.
Yeah. Okay.
There are bursaries that you can apply to if you're struggling,
Okay.
you can apply to these bursaries and you get money that you're not supposed to pay back. It's
Okay.
just given to you. So yeah.
Okay. So I just want to summarize it just to get it clear. You got, let's say there was a package of 16,000 that was for like the research assistantship, but you still had to
So
pay
that's
fee.
the entire package. That's
Okay. So
your for the
your entire,
masters. So
okay. So,
so that's the standard. Yeah.
okay, of 16,000, but you are still expected to pay tuition of 14,000 per year, right?
Hmm.
But to
Yeah.
be able to pay that 14,000 per year, there are a lot of teaching assistantships or internal bursaries that you could apply to supplement that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, perfect. Okay, okay, perfect. So, this was really a great conversation. So, like, can you give us your last words to the people who are planning to go specifically to Canada? What have you learned during this process, and what would you advise people to do?
So I don't know if I should, but I had someone reach out to me
Okay,
a couple. So because I've been really overwhelmed with schoolwork, like
yeah,
I'm grading, doing my own work, have to meet so many deadlines. And so like I'm not so active on, you can attest that I'm
yeah,
not as active as I used to be on social media, but every now and then I go and I see people message me and I try to respond, right? I had someone reach out to me and said, oh, they applied to a school and they sort of didn't, they got a rejection, but then the school came back and said, oh, there's this other offer if you want. And they didn't know if they should, like they were really discouraged because of the first rejection. And I told them that, look, you don't lose anything anyways, because they have already rejected you. So if this happens again, you don't lose anything, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't try it. If you don't give yourself that chance. And guess what happened?
She gave herself a chance and she got a better offer, I guess.
And they got and they got it, and they texted me back on Messenger and said, I got it. I said, I told you, So we should be able, honestly, we should be able to give ourselves, like you said, nobody likes rejection, but the ability to come back and keep trying and trying. There is the possibility that you get rejected, but what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
And that's, every point in life, you will deal with inferiority complex, but if you don't take care, that's going to prevent you from doing a lot of things. There are lots of people who may not even be as good as you are, but just because of their confidence, they are in spaces, that you probably should be in, but for the lack of confidence, or the just for the feeling, like you're inferior, you can't do this, you're not supposed to be in this space and all of that. So I hope that people are able to. I've dealt with it, and I know that it's not easy to just break out of it. Sometimes you need other people see more in you than you see in yourself. And so if you're surrounded by some of these people, they are the ones that will push you. I'm not here by the mere fact that I was able to, I got up one day and I said, oh, I'm going to do it, and I did it. I've had so many people in my life who encouraged me and keep encouraging me, and for that I'm very grateful. Otherwise I probably won't be. And I should say that I don't regret it. I don't regret the step that I took. I am enjoying every bit of it. The people I'm meeting in grad school, the professors, it's just very, it's an awesome place to be in, the conversations. It's just really, really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Edem, once again, I want to say thank you. Thank you for agreeing to share your story. I know it's not easy because we are all busy, but I'm really grateful that you took the step. So this is the first part, as I said from the beginning of the video. In the second part, we are going to talk about her visa journey, her rejection journey, and finally how she got to Queen's University. If you haven't yet subscribed, this would be a great time to subscribe, like, and share to other people. And to hear from me again.